People of the internet! Welcome back to another video. It is I, Don Thomas, back in here with another one. As always, folks, the likes, the comments, and subscribes are all greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for the support on this channel. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's topic, folks. So let's get into this conversation. I have a video pulled up here. It looks like it's between Steve Bartlett and Jordan Peterson. Of course, the Diary of a CEO podcast. I've done reactions to his channel before. I have a video entitled, "What is the point of marriage?" It's a conversation between these two gentlemen. Let's get some.
I'm trying to understand what the point of marriage is versus the relationship we have now. But I can have children in the relationship I have now.
Yeah. The general rule of thumb for life is that you should do what other people have done forever unless you have a really good reason not to. Don't deviate from the straight and narrow path. Like, you are already deviating in all sorts of ways. You're very entrepreneurial, right? So your life has a variety of adventurous pathways. You're going to want to put firm foundation wherever you can. That'll actually free you up to do more adventurous things. Children are a multi-generational commitment because it's children and grandchildren. And so the marriage is a signifier of that. And in order to stay with someone optimally over the longest period of time possible, it has to be serious. And for something to be serious, you have to throw everything at it. You know, and you might say, well, love is enough. It's like, that's a very naive view of the world, because there'll be times, because that's kind of like saying, well, as long as we love each other and we're happy, we'll be together. It's like, well, if you're talking 40 years, there's going to be plenty of years in there where you're not happy and you probably don't love each other. So what then? You going to is it just going to dissolve? Or are you going to say, we're in this, you know, come hell or high water, which is the vow. Come hell or high, and hell and high water, they're coming. And then you got to ask yourself, you know, is this the person you want in the boat with you when hell and high water come? And that's not going to be fun. That's for sure. You want to do it alone? Or you think that when everything falls apart around you, you're going to be in a better position to find someone better? I don't think so. It's a long, and then, you know, you take the marital vow in a religious sense and you do it in front of a community, right? So it signifies commitment, and you need that because, like, you think you can maintain all that commitment on your own? Maybe you can. I doubt it. Generally, people can't, like no one. We need to fortify ourselves in all sorts of ways to get through the things in life that are most difficult.
Let's get into this. So basically, very valid point, man. Very valid point. Of course, again, the video is entitled, "What is the point of marriage?" It's a conversation between Steve Bartlett and Jordan Peterson. And I just had this thought the other day, man. Of course, Jordan Peterson responds, the point of marriage is for childbearing, right? The point of marriage is to have children. Or the institution of marriage, of course, I'm assuming, based off everything he said, is more stable and more structurally sound, foundationally sound under the constitution of marriage. Having children is more foundationally sound, having children. I had a thought the other day, man, and I saw somebody else say it. I saw somebody else say it, and I agreed with it as well, too. And I think I've kind of always subconsciously felt this way. I've shared my thoughts on the channel before as well, too, about how I feel about marriage, right? The concept of marriage. I also agree with Dr. Jordan Peterson and him saying that if we're talking about having children, I do think raising children in a two-parent household under the institution of marriage is the most ideal. I do agree with him in saying that there are some structures, of course, kind of knowing where to go astray and lead your own path and where to stick with things that have shown to maybe work. And I'm going to put work in exclamation because marriages don't always work. But structures that can make your lifestyle a little bit more concise is maybe the best approach when taking on something such as childbearing, right? So I do agree. I do believe if I'm entertaining the idea of having children, then I personally would want that to be under the institution of a two-parent household under marriage, right? Because again, we live in a society right now where, like, oh, single mama, baby daddy, this, that, the stepkids. Some could argue that isn't toxic environment when talking about childbearing and raising up children in this society if there's not enough structural foundation set in place. So I will agree with that. Now, I heard Steve Bartlett response, well, I have those things now without marriage, or people have those things now. I don't know if you speak specifically to him, but one could rebuttal and say, I can be in love, I can have children without the institution of marriage. And I would have to agree with that as well, too. in a sense of saying that one shouldn't think that I love you any less just because we didn't go down to the federal and state court system and sign our name on some papers. Do I love you any less because we didn't do it the traditional way? Are our children not as special or not as sacred to us because we didn't follow suit in the societal expectation of getting married? I have to disagree. I think I could love you just as much and our children could be just as special if we didn't make our way down to the state and federal courthouse and put our name on some papers and this, that, and the other. Now, I had this thought the other day, man. What is a marriage, right? I had this thought the other day. What is a marriage? It's a union of two people, right? But what's the process of marriage? When people get married, of course, you go through the whole process. So you get engaged. The husband maybe goes to, the spouse's wife, her parents, whatever the case is, or whoever's in her life, asks for her hand. Hey, I'm actually looking to ask your daughter's hand, whatever the case, da, 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 da. You get engaged. You have an engagement party, whatever the case is. You make it somewhat publicly known. Then comes the wedding. Then comes the reception. And then y'all all go about y'all business, right? And then in that situation, of course, you gather your family, the ceremony. If we're talking about the marriage ceremony, because there's the institution of marriage and then there's the marriage ceremony. So the institution of marriage, right? The structural significance of marriage, of course, that even I think Dr. Peterson was alluding to as well, too, was basically saying that marriage is a structure and a system that works so you can have solid foundations for a household and a relationship and childbearing. Now, I would agree with that. I think the marriage ceremony, which I would argue, in my honest to God opinion, I do think the modern day women and the modern day idea of marriage now is more about this marriage ceremony and less about the structural love element of marriage, in my personal opinion. I think a lot of days now we see things that are primarily done for social media, i.e. gender reveals. We see these extravagant gender reveals, everything for social media. People announcing the gender of their baby, people making sure they capture the most magical moment of their engagement when the dude gets on one knee and this, that, and the other. Now you got a cameraman shooting in 4K quality, and you got the aerial view of the helicopter with the drones. Like, dudes are doing a lot for social media just to do what, should be sacred and could potentially just be private between you and your loved ones. But okay, here we are. So we made it a staple in our culture right now to publicly do these extravagant expressions of love or whatever when announcing these special significant moments, right? So again, speaking specifically to the marriage ceremony, right? You gather all your close friends and loved ones, this, that, and the other. It's a public declaration, right? And I think Jordan Peterson was alluding to that as well too. It's a public declaration between you, your partner, and all your closest family or friends of saying, hey man, this is my person. I'm making it publicly aware that this is my husband. I'm making it publicly aware that this is my spouse. My friends know, my close friends and relatives know, my parents know, my siblings know, this, that, and the other. Everybody knows. We've made it publicly clear that I am her husband, she is my wife, right? That's what a marriage ceremony is, right? It's a public declaration. I had a thought the other day. Is that not enough? Because, again, is that not a solid enough alternative than having to go down to the court and make sure the federal government, and again, people rebuttal and say, oh no, there's benefits of doing it the traditional way. Of course, your tax benefits, how you file on tax, and how you're this, that, and the other. But again, if it's all a matter of public perception, if it's just a matter of social awareness, right, where nobody's hiding, it's no confusion, whatever the case is, I had this thought: is a marriage ceremony not as valuable than the actual marriage of going and getting the federal and state government involved? Is that not enough? Ladies, let me ask you something. Comment down in the comment section below. If a man came up to you and had full intentions of marrying you, he wants to marry you, he wants you to be his wife, he wants you to have the last name, he wants you to have the ring, the house, the kids, everything. But he does not want to get the state and federal government involved. So as an alternative, he presents to you this. He says to you, hey, I'm going to give you the ring. We can go down to the place and get your last name changed. Because you can do that. You can change your name now. There's a lot of things that you could do that should suffice, in my personal opinion, right? So hear me out. So a man came up to you, he's like, hey man, I don't want to do the traditional way of getting married. But however, I am going to see to it that I get you a ring. I am going to see to it that if, you take my last name, I am going to see to it that we, get a house. We get our house, whatever the case is. I am going to see to it that we have a nice wedding, a nice reception. We call all your friends, all your family members. We can dance all night, dance our lives away, eat good food, take good pictures, make a public declaration that us, ourselves, and all our close relatives, loved ones are aware that we are not now married, and everybody go about their way. Is that not enough? Can that not constitute as a solid marriage? Just a public declaration. So that way people can't say, oh, they didn't know. It's not like I'm hiding you. What are the cases? It's not that you should feel shamed. If I scream it to the mountaintops, hey, I'm married. I'm a married man. This is my wife. Hey, everybody, gather around. Come to the dinner. Come to the reception. Come to the, it don't even got to be, again, depending on what you believe in. Some people believe in the spiritual element as well, too, or the religious element of marriage as well, too. So, of course, you want to get a pastor. You'd want them to pray over you, this, that, that. You can do all of that. There's dudes I know out there right now, again, if you're especially a certain level of affluence as well, too, there's certain gentlemen out there as well, too, who don't want to sign no papers, bro, when it comes to this marriage thing, but they love you just as much. I've seen some situations. There's somebody that I saw recently that I was like, man, I agree 100%. I think a marriage ceremony should be just enough. If I really like you and I want to preach to the mountaintops how much I am in love with you, what are the cases? And if that's what our society's just made it out to be anyway, let's just keep it real, ladies. Let's just keep it real. The wedding nowadays is just a glitz and glam fest with photos and videos and a reception and dressing up. Like, we can still do all of that, bro. You can have all of that. We can still do all of that without having to make our way down to the court system. And now you wake up one morning 10 years later and feel like you resent me now and want to divorce me. Now it's now pulling teeth for us to be separated. I'm telling you, man, I don't know. I see things a little bit differently. The way I'm kind of looking at this situation, I'm not opposed to getting married, but we're going to have to be a little bit creative in how we go about it. We don't have to follow these institutional norms that have people divorcing when we know the divorce rate is upwards of 50%, if not more. When we know people can wake up and switch one day and say, you know what, I don't love you anymore. I'm leaving. I'm taking the kids. I'm taking the money. I'm taking the dog. I'm taking the house. I'm taking the car. Like, dudes have a lot of tragic stories that they could go off of other people and feel like, man, I'm not falling victim to that same trap. Now, not necessarily saying that you're expecting that to happen to you, but we know it's possible. We know the success rate is 50-50, right? I always see this one dude all the time as well, too. He says, man, if you knew jumping out of a helicopter was 50-50, is a 50% chance that your parachute would open or not, would you still take it? If you hopped up in a plane and say, I'm jumping out of this plane right now, there's a 50% chance that the parachute may not open. 50%. Would you still jump? Some people would, some people would not. So if the divorce rate is 50%, if not more, I think it's like 60 nowadays, but I don't know the recent stats. But if it's now a 60% chance that all marriages end in divorce, why are people still rushing their way to divorce? Why are we not taking our time, or to get married, I should say? Why are people not taking their time to make sure they're making a sound decision? You see what I'm saying? So again, going back to this video as well too, of course, they go in a lot more. What is the point of marriage? I already kind of gave my take, but I'm glad to have heard Jordan Peterson's take. What is the point of marriage? What is the point of marriage? It's a conversation between Steve Bartlett and Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson basically just said, man, the point of marriage is to have children. The institution of marriage makes the most sense when having children. Again, I do agree with that statement, but I do believe a public declaration with all our close family and friends, one big extravagant dinner, ball, however you want to do it, is just enough, as opposed to going down to the courthouse and now, oh, she wants to divorce you or he wants to divorce now. Oh, it's X amount of dollars. You got to get the lawyer involved now, this, that, and the other. I feel like a public declaration of our love should be just enough, in my personal opinion. But those are my thoughts. Of course, I want to hear yours down in the comment section below. What do you make of this, folks? What do you make of this video? What is the point of marriage? What is the point of marriage to you? Do you care to get married? I don't know who's watching out there in the world. Do you care to get married? Are you afraid of marriage? Do you agree that maybe there's elements of the institution of marriage that can maybe be fine-tuned to the current modern world? Or do you agree with Dr. Peterson in saying that some structures should just be left as is? Those are my thoughts. Of course, I want to hear yours down in the comment section below. As always, the likes, the comments, the subscribes are all greatly appreciated. I will catch you on the next one.